Hey guys, in this video let's review Ys Origin. You know the drill. After finishing the game, let's check its story, gameplay, graphics and music. Be sure to look at the timestamps in case there's something you wanna check. And without further ado, let's begin. Ys Origin takes place 700 years before the first Ys game, Ancient Ys Vanish, where we will hear the background story of Dharm Tower, the Twin Goddesses and the Black Pearl. The game begins sharing a small cinematic where it explains that it was a place named Ys, a place with glory and prosperity, where the Black Pearl was used to give blessings, and among these blessings, the power of magic. People thought that their prosperity would last forever, but they were wrong, as demons started appearing, and Ys was their main target. This pushed the two goddesses and 6 retainers to raise Solomon's shrine into the sky. It will seem as it was a flawless plan, but the demons created a tower where they were able to reach the shrine. Time later, the two goddesses were not found in their usual place. The 6 retainers had no time to spare, and that is how they arranged a search party that will descend into hell to find these two goddesses. Through the following cinematics, we are given a quick idea of how things were above in the sky with a relative peaceful time, and how things went downhill real fast. Some knights who fought down there with a bit of a spoiler, and pretty much how the search party was arranged to find the goddesses, as well as how they were intercepted while reaching the ground. By this point, it's worth mentioning that depending who you choose, the story is going to have different approaches. For example, with Yunica, you will see her backstory and how, despite her lineage, she is not able to use magic at all, where on the other hand with Hugo we are going to hear how proficient he is with his magic. Let's not spoil that much about their story because I believe they are quite entertaining in their own way. But it is worth saying that both characters have their own struggles, between perhaps a bit too naive and overly confident. Here I will say that if you just go over the text, chances are that this story is not going to be that great, because their narrative is kept at the same level throughout their respective tale. But if you like to read a bit of philosophy in between, I consider there is a really good message regarding power, where sure maybe Yunica is naive as heck, but because of that she's able to accomplish things in her particular way. And Hugo, in search of recognition, he messes up real good, but it is through those painful experiences that he learns who he is at the end. In all honesty, I believe there is a cool message in their respective stories, but it is not going to be for everyone. I will give it an 8. Gameplay wise, at first you have but 2 choices. Hugo is able to use long-range attacks while moving kinda slow, where on the other hand Yunica is all about mid-range combat. This is a dungeon crawler where you will explore the same location, in this case the Dharm Tower, which has different environments within its walls. There is a third character, but it depends which version of the game you are playing. Let's say that if you go for Steam, in my understanding, by finishing one story you are able to get the third character, and in the Switch for example, after you finish the second story, you are given the third character. They have particular ways to play around, but in this review I will just talk about Yunica and Hugo. Let's not spoil the story and characters. And despite its looks, the game has amazing responses, as it is fast-paced in most cases, having enemies that move in interesting ways. Of course, at first they don't do that much, but down the line there are enemies that deal a lot of damage plus some elements. And overall I will say that Hugo is a bit easier to play around as he's able to use long-range attacks, so most fights come down to just spam attacks and that's it, no major issue. Maybe his wind magic is a bit annoying as he's only able to cast a kind of shield. Other than that, I will say that you can pretty much beat anyone without that much issue. And Yunica attacks between close to mid-range. Her advantage is that she is quite fast, and most of her moves pretty much impact her speed. She's pretty much the adult Christine from this story, fast-paced and risky. Perhaps what is worth mentioning is that if you do not take a bit of time to find materials to upgrade your weapons, the game can turn into a nightmare. Here a couple of extra points change a lot everything. There is a particular place where the game is going to become hard, and as far as I saw, there are no real works around unless you want to farm a lot, so let's say at the middle of the game. But once you pass that small challenge, it is all well and good once again. For example, with Unica, I left the upgrades behind and I was only dealing 1 point of damage, and there is a boss that with all confidence I can say that you will not be able to beat it if you do not patch that loss in damage, which is equivalent to something like 6-8 levels. Aside from that, I could say that the game is quite linear. It has some places to look around, but nothing out of the world. What surprised me a lot were the bosses. Every single boss was entertaining to fight, along their particular puzzle, let's call them that way, where you need to tag some specific areas and then you are given a small window of time to deal damage. On paper it sounds easy, but in practice it was quite challenging, or at least I was beating the heck out of me real good in some moments, because I didn't want to farm and I forgot the upgrade materials. And something cool is that there are interesting puzzles throughout the adventure. Nothing impossible to get, as your companions or other characters help you with different kind of hints. And a detail that I loved a lot is that some of these puzzles are different in their approach from one character to another. I will give it another 8. In the graphics section, I usually talk about the game performance, glitches, and the art of the game, along other visual or technical things. This is the Switch version of the game. Personally, I didn't experience anything weird, like the game closing itself, frame drops, or something like that. As for the art, Taue Shunsuke has some amazing ideas. I will say that it is similar to the late 80s anime style. Personally, I enjoy it. While the game doesn't have that many cinematics, considering the year in which they were created and how they flow, I like them a lot. It is like the classic anime intro or outro that reveals a lot in a couple of minutes. And once in the main game, I gotta say that it is quite creative in multiple executions. I am not going to say that these enemies are super defined, you might have to play really close to the screen to fully appreciate them. Nonetheless, what is worth pointing out is that unfortunately they use several sprites a number of times, which kinda tires a bit in the long run. Aside from that, I will say that this is a beautiful game. I will give it another 8. And last but not least, it's music. Many RPGs take lots of inspiration from neoclassic metal. Sure, metal is what you will find most of times in RPGs, which is something I appreciate a lot, but when you combine highly technical guitar with counterpoints, ostinatos and vibratos, you will hit perfectly well a particular nail, because this genre doesn't limit itself with classical approaches, as it can take from the Romantic and Baroque periods. What this means is that you will hear in this game multiple tracks with that kind of heroic and fantasy spirit, befitting of an Ys title, where they throw extraordinary tracks like Scarlet Tempest and Silent Desert, just to give some examples of what I mean. So for me this soundtrack hits multiple nails really well, because it has the genre, the art, the kind of style, and it matches really well once you put everything together. To me, this is the best part of this game. The music is a 10. Ys Origin final score is an 8.5. It is a bit rough around some edges, but it is a good game that I will recommend for those who want to have an old school experience, but do not have that much time to sink into one game. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.